I was just saying that I think it's amazing. I think it's unbelievable in a way how my biggest breakthroughs in life here near the end of the time that has passed so far. Not the end of my life, but not near the end of the days in it, but I'm 41 years old, and my breakthroughs happened at the end of this segment. I would say about 3 years ago, is when I really started to. When I had that moment, it's just that I just wanted to express that I find it almost unbelievable that they had everything to do with recognizing my own self-deception. The big one with my children, and the one I've had today, literally today. I saw my sin in its fullness, my error, my mistakes, just like fully for what they were. And when I did, it felt easy to let them go. It felt easy knowing that I wouldn't have a problem letting these things go. But for example, I want to give examples. I'll tell the story of what really triggered my first awakening. I said my children, and it's true. See, I loved all my family, but my children held a special place in my heart and soul. I felt a responsibility for them, as parents do, like I didn't for everybody else in my family. Although I had some aunties, my grandmother's sisters. One of them had cerebral palsy, all the way till she was in her 60s. Thea Janie was her name, and Thea Nena, we called her. Thea Nena, she got up into her 80s. But see, what's interesting about her is that she got an infection in her brain when she was around 7 or 8 years old. Maybe 9. At a very young age, and it debilitated her in the sense that the doctors told my grandmother, or no, they told my grandmother's mother and father that she would never develop mentally past that age. She would remain at this stage of development until she passed through. And she did, but she was the sweetest soul, and I really think it was a blessing to everyone in a big way that we couldn't account for. We couldn't account for it because she maintained that innocent nature, that sweet, innocent, kind, beautiful little self, even as an decrepit little old lady. She was still telling us how laughter was the best medicine, and all in Espanol. She didn't speak English, so this would all be in Spanish, and she would repeat a lot of the phrases she knew. A lot of the stuff that she said, she would repeat it a lot. So there was some apologizing for that, but not too much. We loved her, and I loved her. And yeah, so what was I saying? Can't remember what brought me to my theas. Oh yeah, no, I just empathized. I empathized with the difficulty, the struggle that Thea Janie and Thea, well, it was really Thea Janie. She was so clear. She didn't have a developmental issue. She was fully clear about her disability, about her pain. She was a grown woman inside of her body. Uh, she, and so she knew. She was aware of the suffering that she'd gone through in her life that whole time, and how painful. I remember thinking, that I wanted to take away her pain. I just tried to imagine how much that was, how much she endured. And I know some people, they rise above, they live incredible lives, like Stephen Hawking, in the most debilitated states. That doesn't make it any less frustrating or painful or just intolerable in a way. I see why so many people choose to opt out in situations like that, or even less so, regarding physical conditions. I think people, they take it for granted how so many people commit suicide because not of physical wounds, but because of all these emotional wounds and mental wounds and trauma that they live through and survive through, but not without the the gouges and the gashes in their emotional bodies that sometimes never get healed. And that's a tragedy when there is medicine, when there is plant medicine and natural remedies and cures that are easy to obtain, natural and abundant, basically free, because we live in a fully abundant universe that God has made, not without any lack at all. God didn't create anything to be lacking. He didn't fuck up, and he's not an idiot. She's not an idiot. Mother, Father, Goddess. Mother, Father, God. Goddess, God. Because there's a feminine aspect of God and a masculine aspect of God. It's not just one or the other. Because it doesn't need to be a matriarchy or a patriarchy, but a beautiful balance between both energies, as they do exist in us as well, men and women. I call myself a dark, divine, feminine being. But before that, it was just divine feminine. Because I recognized that I was a little more strongly associated, a little more strongly connected to the right side of my brain, which is the feminine side. It's the yin. I think yin is feminine. Yang is masculine. And I never would have ever claimed myself to be never would have called myself divine feminine, feminine anything for most of my life, because I was extremely emasculated throughout my youth and childhood by my family of my sister, my mother, not so much my grandmother wasn't so emasculating. But the pains that we go through the damage that we receive is sometimes so insidious, maybe very often insidious, so insidious we can't see it with our peepers, especially not long after the fact. We don't know what we've suppressed and has become completely repressed in the form of the blind spots that make up the shadow, the place where the shadow self of our own shadow hides from, our conscious mind, to feel safe, to feel just an ounce of peace, really. But yeah, I am divine feminine being because I'm connected to the functions, the beautiful, wonderful, magical functions of the right side of the brain. I'm so proud to be the being that I am, and to have that extra, power in those areas, intuition and creativity and more. Well, I'm sure I'll cover that. I'm gonna start teaching about all the things that we humans take for granted, and about the natural gifts and powers that our brains provide us with. Just naturally, they're underrated and overlooked, taken for granted. As you may know, when children are born geniuses, we teach that creativity, we teach that genius out of them by turning them into robots, making them play memorization, and it's a very specific system that we follow, which was literally designed to create subordination, to create masses of subordinate people who knew how to dance a nice little dance for whoever fucking needed it. But it does nothing for creativity. It does nothing for the genius that's within each and every child that's born, who naturally possesses it at a young age, and gradually, as they get further and further in the levels at school, it fades. The less we use of our God-given gifts, those muscles become atrophied, and we forget we even have them. But yeah, let me tell you the story of what triggered my awakening a few years ago in my own family. But it's kind of like that moment I had with my tias, where I felt so much compassion for their situation, and I prayed to one day, maybe make a difference in, maybe not their lives, but in people suffering from what they suffered from, But in my own family, a few years ago, it was closer to home. It was a little closer to home. A lot closer to home. I've suffered a lot in my life throughout my childhood without really understanding why exactly. I asked the questions, but the answers that I received sometimes were kind of circular and tended to point right back at me, as if I was just born this way. As my mother literally said, I think you just always were this or that way. Insecure, she was talking about. Yeah, I asked her why I was so insecure when I was 7, because I became aware that was my condition. I was extremely insecure about just all the things you don't want to be insecure about, really. When people would laugh nearby, I would assume that they were laughing at me, and I didn't understand why I was so insecure. I asked my mother. We were doing dishes one night. I'm drying while she's doing the washing or something like that. Little kid, standing on a chair or something like that in the kitchen with her, and I said, "Mom, why am I so insecure?" She said, I want you to bear in mind that she had a degree in children's developmental psychology, which I didn't know at the time that I asked her that. I didn't understand what that meant or all that it implied. But I do understand the full gravity of it now, and the lie that I uncovered decades later when I learned everything I learned and remembered what I had asked her and what she'd told me. It shone a light. It has shown a light on something that was important for me to see if I was to ever heal and recover from all of the disposition that I was given. But she said, "Why am I so insecure?" She said, "Well, honey, I think you just always were." And so I took that. I mean, that was the answer. I was born insecure, basically, is what she was implying. Like, not that she was. That was like a covert way of saying, it's on you, kid. It's on you. You're just fucking insecure. It definitely wasn't me. It wasn't grandma. It wasn't your sister. It wasn't society. It wasn't the school. I mean, you're 7. You've been in school for so long. It was because you were just born that way. DNA. Some bullshit. No, but I didn't put up a fight back then. I just wanted to know. I was just curious. But if you understand developmental psychology, she had a degree in it. Of course she knew. She knew the basics. She knew attachment theory and shit like that. She knew a lot. She knew about the different stages of development, which I now do too. I had to reverse engineer everything about me after I got triggered into like helping myself. But yeah, she knew what she was doing. She lied. It's funny because one of the things she said, she would say the most, this was like a theme of her, was that she hated liars. And this was part of her shadow, I suppose. But she hated liars, and yet she was lying to a 7-year-old in that moment when he was just sincerely asking, like, what's the deal with this condition that I exist with psychologically? It's fucking uncomfortable. It's painful. And it's humiliating. It's like a recurring humiliation that you live with. And I developed your core beliefs. Everybody has core beliefs that they develop about themselves, which are foundational to who they have created their ego, their sense of self, their self-image to be. And one of my core beliefs was that I was worthless, that I had no value. And it stayed with me almost all the way through until I finally challenged it over the past few years. After what motivated me to do so. But what was I saying? Yeah, the pain is real. And the bullshit's real. And it's important it'll come back. For now, I'm just gonna explain how it was a few years ago, living in my apartment on the north side of San Antonio. Finally, made a difference in the struggle that I was living. I was moving up and up in terms of the area that I was living, in terms of the school districts that we were in because of the area we were living. And we were at Sendero Ridge at 1604 and 281 on the pretty far north side of San Antonio. So really the more taken care of side of town, where kids didn't have to worry so much about all the problems that come with inner city bullshit and fucking living in the hood, going to Catholic. It didn't matter if you were going to Catholic or public schools on the southeast side. It was pretty the problems were They were pretty uniformal in those areas. But anyway, so we were doing well for ourselves. Kids were going to good schools. And I was in a trauma bond with their mother for almost 19, almost 20 years total. But this was at like, I don't know, the 17th or 18th year. It was pretty close to near the end, I guess. 18. I don't remember. I'd have to like trace it exactly. We were still together at this point, I suppose. But we were trauma bonding. We're in our apartment and just fighting over the most ridiculous, insane shit. And I happen to be of the mind that like I'm still clueless in the sense that I think that like I can reason. I think that logic will win the day, you know, eventually. You know, even though I'm 19 years into the same cyclical fuckstorm that our trauma bond relationship was. See, I didn't know what a trauma bond was to begin with. There's a emotional intelligence skill called name it to tame it, and it has everything to do with gaining the name of the particular thing you're experiencing, knowing the name of it, understanding the meaning so well that you can put your experience in a particular perspective and understanding. And so trauma bond would have been helpful to know, because back in the beginning of our relationship, because our relationship was like so chaotic right from the beginning. It was like, as I described it, it was like half heaven, half hell. But I guess it was a little more on the hell side, just slightly. All it had to be was slightly more, but there was plenty of times when, you know, maybe that balance dipped even further, for sure. I mean, what do they say? We choose people who abuse us at the exact right amount that we believe we deserve. Yeah. Well, I married basically someone even more fucked up, more damaged than my mother, because I needed to take care of someone the way I took care of my mother. I suffered from emotional incest. It's a type of incest which isn't physical, but it's psychological, and yeah, that encapsulates it. It's completely psychological in the sense that at stage 2 of development, the terrible twos, let's change that name. The child does something for the first time that they've never done before, and that's what it signifies. That's what makes this stage of development so important and so relevant. The child draws a circle in the sand around themselves, figuratively, metaphorically, and they say no. When the caretaker, primary caretaker, asks them to do something, as they're always asking them to do, you know, guiding, directing everything about them, from the time they're babies. Well, this is the first time that the child draws that circle and says no. It's basically the declaration of independence. It's Independence Day for that being. You know, they're ready to like take the next step and grow, and this stage, getting through it successfully, is incredibly important, absolutely necessary if you want to see your child go on to become as successful as a human being that they possibly can. They need to get through all the stages as well as possible, but each stage has one way or another, a way for them to be just totally arrested in their development. And you good? Still got battery? And so yeah, we draw the circle in the sand, and we assert our independence. We say no for the first time. We tell them no. You know, like, go get your toys off the ground. No, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just the fact of you're saying no for the first time, and to someone who you've never said no to before, it's a pretty big deal, as you can imagine, for a tiny little one, who's like, everyone else is like giants to them, every adult, no matter how stupid they are or cruel, you know. And that's another thing it's important to know, that children, when they're abused, they always assume that it's them. They never, they never presume that, you know what, this is them. Like, they're projecting onto me their own fucking pains and insecurities and curses, their family curses that have been passed down from generation to generation. The child always assumes that there must be something wrong with them, and so I did the same. I mean, but yeah. If the parent doesn't allow them to get through, if the parent responds extremely negatively in that event, like for example, they decide to take offense to the child who's saying no to them in that moment, or even start to guilt trip and shame them, become a bully, saying such things as, how dare you say no to me, how dare you this, like, you punk your little kid, your 2-year-old. They back off. I backed off, right? But the child tries again. We do try again. I don't know how many times we try to assert that independence, that level of that, to get that stage of growth handled. But if we're rejected enough times, if we're shut down and like debased, humiliated, and just shattered in one way or another. It doesn't have to be shattered. It could just be like just some serious bullying that doesn't let the child assert that no, like it's never okay to say no. Then the child doesn't pursue that. They give up on doing that, and they were already enmeshed. They're already enmeshed with mom or the primary caretaker. But now it's like they're not gonna unmesh for who knows how long. Sometimes never. And so the sense of self, the sense of identity that child has, is now intertwined with that primary caretaker. Which is why I was always taking care of my mother. I was attending to her emotions and her needs and her happiness, because apparently I didn't see this at the time, obviously, but I couldn't be happy unless she was happy. Making sure she was good was what helped me to be good, because I was responsible. I felt responsible for her feelings, even though I was a child. There was the opposite that was appropriate. And she used to say, like, oh, you always used to make me laugh. Like, I developed things from this situation. I developed a heightened sense of empathy, because I had to be aware. I had to be keen, like extremely keen, of her emotions, so as not to bring down her wrath on me, so as not to end up in a humiliated state once again. Keep mommy happy, or daddy, depending on the situation. No, my dad took off. He got the fuck out of there as soon as we were like 4 or 5. So he could only take so much. And I get that, but that is another story. He's got his own set of issues, which I've learned from, and it was another one of those things. Oh, it's a great story, but again, I'll save that for another time. Back to this saga. My children. So I'm in the trauma bond with my partner still, 19 years in. The kids are 14 and 11 at this point. And as Michelle and myself are going at it at inappropriate levels and shit children shouldn't be exposed to, especially not on a recurring basis, because that is damaging. They had to put up with that and like try to ignore it for so long, and we hurt them, we damaged them so clearly. But it wasn't so clear to me until that day, because as we're fighting, I hear an eruption of a fight between my sons, Kyle and Tristan, in the next room. Tristan's the older one and Kyle's the younger one. And one of them, Tristan was the masculine, divine masculine, and Kyle was divine feminine, and they each handled their wounds in different ways. But in this moment, they're going at each other. They're fighting like crazy. They're like screaming at each other, and Kyle's in tears, and Tristan is like frustrated as fuck, but he's like looking pretty numb over there. You know, that was his way of dealing with all that pain. And he told me one day, before this had happened, he told me, Dad, it was just me and him this one day. It was almost like a confession, but a cry for help at the same time. And I took it seriously. He said, Dad, I can't feel anything. I don't feel love for any of you. Just our dog. I only love our dog, Bruno. I'm so glad that I finally, when I did get this dog, which was an irrational decision to me and was hard for, it was, I really went out of my way and against my own judgment to do this thing, which occurred to me would be, I didn't understand how good of a decision it would be in terms of how it would emotionally be of a help and a support in our little family, our little fucked up family. But in that moment, he said, I only have love for our dog, but I don't feel love for you or for Mom or for Kyle. But he was saying that he didn't, not that he didn't want to, but that he was frozen, numb inside. No father, no parent wants to necessarily hear your child say they don't love you, but that's not what he was saying. I was listening. He was saying that there's something wrong, that I'm hurt on this this weird fucking level, and he hadn't had the courage to put it out there to us before. But I was already starting, as I've shown many times, but never consistently. I showed that there was a part of me that was deep and listened and knew how to connect, to really, it wasn't just an act, it wasn't just words. I wasn't just apologizing only to go and commit the same crime the next day against them. He was very brave to share that with me, and it broke my heart that he was in that condition. And that was the beginning of what led me to the next point, which was when they were fighting in their room, just going at each other. What I saw in that moment, I saw them, my kids, reflecting back to me the very nature of the trauma bond going on between my partner and myself. And it's like I hadn't seen it so clearly before, but I knew that we'd planted many seeds of our own disorder and mental issues within them. But my greatest fear of all was that I didn't do better than my parents had done for me. But the matter of the fact was that the seeds that we'd planted in them, the sins of the mother and the father, ourselves, had planted in them throughout all those years, and their grandmother, because their grandmother, no matter how much I tried, how many times straightening out her behavior towards them was attempted, she was the devil about it. Very insidious. I saw that the seeds had become full-blown trees. They were fully fully grown and distorted and twisted and gnarled and sick and hurt and diseased. And I knew that, like, every curse, all the sins of my own that I had taken on were fully grown in them, and that they would experience all of the pain that I had, and possibly more. But most likely, at least all that I had. Not to mention their mothers too. But my greatest fear in life, amongst all of it, had come true in that moment. In that moment, it became real. It became what devastated my mind, body, heart, and soul. On such a level, I couldn't take another step. Couldn't live another day. And I prayed, and in that moment or night, I got so real with God and with myself. I promised myself, I said that I was going to do everything. I'm going to do everything I possibly could in my power to take responsibility, to take full responsibility of what I knew that I had done to them, along with the other people that had helped raise them. I knew I was responsible, and it wasn't something I could sweep under the carpet like my parents before me or whatever. You know, everyone does it. It's just so commonplace. We hurt our children so bad, and then we just write it off like, hey, well, that's life. Go figure it out yourself. You know, I couldn't figure it out. Good luck. But I said, fuck that. I'm not okay with this. I'm not gonna just stand by and like accept that. I don't accept this. I don't. God, I don't accept this. There has to be something I can do. So it became clear that in order to help them, my idea in that moment was that I was going to help them heal. I was going to figure it out how to help them heal from all that shit. And I promised that I would do everything in my power to deal with my bullshit, to deal with all that undealt with pain and horror that I lived with my whole life, all those core beliefs and my unworthlessness, my insecure attachment, my death wish. There's so much. There was many layers. My mother, like I said, she had a degree in children's developmental psychology, so she knew how to fuck me at every turn behind my back. You know, when I wasn't perceiving her as an angel and honestly getting nurtured by God through that same being, and thank God for magic and miracles, because the same people, the same family that were all part of the same darkness that devastated me and set me adrift, set me onto a path where they intended to watch me die and to claim whatever spoils of victory in terms of energy that they could, from the fallout of that. That was, whether they were conscious of it or not, it was in their shadow. Because the devil operates in the shadow. The darkness operates in the shadow. But not all darkness, because we're all good and we're all evil. We're not just good or just evil. Human beings have a balance. But I promised myself and I promised God in that moment that I was going to help myself. I was going to deal with my shit, and if I could heal myself, if I could figure out how the fuck I got so fucked up in the first place, then I could maybe extend that to them. Then maybe I could help them to heal as well.
to face their shit the way I faced my shit, and give them the hope and the guidance that they needed in order to not to suffer so incredibly as I did for decades. Silently and in silence. Out of the greatest of suffering, the most massive of souls, we do emerge. The most massive and beautiful of them are seared with scars and pain untold. And often they die with it. But God had other plans for me. And that triggered in motion, that set into motion my awakening, my healing, my process of healing and understanding, of learning all the names to tame all the demons. It's a great story that follows all the different steps that are involved and the book that I've tried to get it together as a way to share the wisdom and experience that I've the wisdom that I've gained from all of that incredible and incredibly painful experience, because I was able to heal so many wounds, and I was confident that, I'd be able to extend this to my children. But I'll save that for another time, because it gets worse before it gets better. But I'm going to put this in segments just because it's a lot and my battery's running low or some bullshit. But yeah, no, it was my children. What I'd done to my children, what I saw that I'd done to my children, that set into motion my own healing. Thank God for them, and God bless. I don't want to say thank God that they took on all that pain so that I could awaken, because that's fucked up. That wasn't the purpose of it. It's not supposed to be that I'm healed and that they die. But God works in so mysterious, so amazing, so miraculous of ways. I will always say, this is a realm, the duality that we live in, this realm of opposites, is one of magic, miracles, and divine mayhem. And as long as God exists, it'll stay that way. Thank you for listening to some of my story, some of maybe like the first part of a story that finally started to make sense, and like a puzzle, like a 3D or a 5D puzzle even, that I'd been piecing together all my life, but it really didn't ever come fully together. Start to really come together until that tragic, devastating moment of lucidity. I saw things, and the self-deception that had allowed that to go on for so long was broken. Like, fuck that. No longer self-deceiving, no longer continuing on that pain. And that's why I'm called the Curse Breaker. One of many. I'm sure there's many other Earth Angels on this planet ready to do their part in the sections that they are in the areas that they've been placed. Because we have all come here for great purpose and with great reason. Across the universe, across time itself. I'm from the future, supposedly. I'm from a future time. But all of that will be fun to to share as I get more clarity on it and it becomes revealed to us all as a whole, because we are all one. We are all one. There's no separation between any of us. You're not a drop of water in the ocean. You're the ocean itself. You're the entire ocean in a drop of water. That's God. That's Goddess. Don't be fooled by genderism, whatever that is. We're all feminine. We all have a feminine side and a masculine side, and both of them are equally important and both equally invaluable. We have a lot of work to do, corrections to make regarding all the bullshit that we've allowed to become part of our belief systems and ways of life. I'm so happy to be who I am today, as someone who can teach, who can share, who can show the errors of so many of our ways, including how we're absolutely complicit in and responsible for every way that the world is still in. Because the power was always with us. But we denied our responsibility. We denied our power and responsibility and cast it outside of us, when really you can't do that. You can do so in your mind, but you can't really do that. It's still something we created. But blaming everyone and everything else outside of us was just our way of being in denial. Massive worldwide pain, suffering, denial. The age of suffering is coming to an end, and I'm here to help put it to bed. And I know that is why I chose the life that I have lived up to now, because I lived a blueprint. I lived a life of such pain at the hands of narcissistic sadism and everything that means. I'll go into it later. In order to know it so fucking well that I can smell it from a mile away. I know it in and out, through and through. And my discernment is off the charts. I am dark, divine, feminine. My podcast will probably called Know Thyself Deeply, aka The Return of the Prodigals, aka The Return of Me, Dark, Divine, Feminine. To usher, to help humanity, to serve humanity and free this family that I am part of now, from the chains that have bound us. We can be free from the blood that has bound us for so much longer than you probably know. But I'm going to explain all of that in time. Heaven on earth awaits us. Those who still have hearts and souls, a fraction of a heart, still there. It doesn't matter how shattered it is, if you have even but a piece that is still alive, it's not too late. It's not too late to become whole, to reclaim all the abandoned and missing and the rejected and the devastated pieces that are all scattered throughout the underworld, throughout our unconscious mind. I will show you how to reclaim them as I have reclaimed all of my own and become whole, as my mother once wished of me when God was speaking through her voice. She said, son, I just want you to be whole. I just want you to be whole. And now I know what God meant when he said that through her. As he's spoon-feeding me and nurturing me into the man, into being that I am today. Ready to share, ready to help us all heal. Give it half a chance. More story to come. I thought I would take off all filtering and effects. I don't want to be any prettier. I want to be as ugly as I really am right now. Because it's all up. It's gonna be. It's all up from here, as far as I'm concerned. Concerning me and my family and everyone else, your permission has been revoked. Your existence on this planet, haunting the living through meat sacks that you've already devastated and destroyed. Your permission to be here has been revoked. And you will either evolve to feed off love and the positive spectrum of emotions, or you will cease to exist, or I don't know what. I don't care what. It doesn't matter. You're just the bad guy of the story, and God needed one. I mean, we needed one. We needed someone to play evil. I call them termites and parasites, as the parasites is what the Toltec term for it. But it's time to enlighten everyone that is still capable and part of humanity, however little or however few that may be, that are all here and among us today. Pretty sure that was like a reference to the rapture and how like all these, we're going separate ways. Worlds are, multiverse is splitting in different directions. And my family, my soul tribe, the Dead Wolverines, Soul Tribe Dead Wolverines, which is a reference to Deadpool and Wolverine, divine feminine, divine masculine, and the shit we've been through. Well, we are here to fucking rock out with our cocks out. But in the best way. Not the way porn has had us turned. Pornography, me and Grok had a great conversation about that earlier, about the insidiousness of pornography and how it has everything to do with why the birth rate of all these countries is like fucked or some shit like that. But it's part of my story too. Anyways, okay, all right, enough for now. That's enough. No, save your no autographs for now. I'll do that a little bit later. No flash photography. I mean, you're bothering my tree here. Okay. Alright, we gotta go. Me and the lizards have gotta go. We gotta go do some things. Meditate or some shit like that. Some breath work. Shadow work. Yoga. Meditation. Fucking all the self-care stuff. Take myself out on a date. Maybe connect with the girl of my dreams. Because I found her. But, oh my gosh, I have so much good news to share. Well, good and bad. Because you're gonna cry. You're gonna cry before you. I'm gonna break your hearts before I'm gonna heal them. And I'm not gonna heal them. You're gonna heal them. No one can save anyone except themselves. And we can barely even do that. We can barely control ourselves, much less anyone else. And Jesus didn't die for any of your sins. That's fucking retarded. And would you even want him to, even if he could? How irresponsible is that of you to be so wishful and like selfish? Well, like real selfishness, because selfishness is a virtue, as Ayn Rand said, but that's something else. That's not selfishness. That's like, let me go burn heaven down, and then you can just forgive me, for nothing.
no consequence. Just because of the imagination that, like, Jesus died for our sins. Jesus is my father. Mary Magdalene is my mother. I was Sarah, their daughter, in that time. I'm reincarnated, yeah. I've been here many times. I've reincarnated as many different beings. Khalil Gibran, Ahmed, Malcolm X. My birthday is 10/10. So there's cool shit that's helped me connect with many of my past lives and the wisdom of those incarnations. They've left a trail of breadcrumbs for me to find, but I forgot what I was gonna start. You know, I could fucking go all day and night about the shit because I really do have so much to share and to get through to the collective that's still... Oh yeah, that's what it was. Jesus didn't die for your sins. In some old Jewish tradition, in a village, they would cast the rabbis or whoever was it, they would cast all the sins of the village. This was a ritual. Cast all the sins of the whole village, everyone in the village, casting all the sins onto a goat. And you know what they did next? They sacrificed that goat. They basically put him on a cross, cut his throat. As they did Jesus. As they did my father. And their imagination was that the goat was... They were relieving them, the whole village, of all their sins, because the goat took them. The goat took the sins. Can you see how the crucifixion of my father was just a flamboyant version of that, and it meant nothing. It meant nothing because what meant something was when he showed up a few days later and showed that death doesn't exist, because it doesn't. It's a lie. Scarcity is a lie. Death is a lie. We pass through. We don't die. We change form. We don't die. The body withers, but these are avatars. These are our avatars for our spirit, our soul. We are the soul. We are the spirit. We are not the fingernail. We are not the mucus coming out of all of our pores. We're the spirit, the indwelling spirit, and as that spirit, we are the living extensions of our Creator. As perfect as the Creator, because you didn't create you. None of us created ourselves. Our Maker, the Maker of all that is seen and unseen, made us as extensions of His Spirit. Perfect. And what you can't, because you didn't make yourself, you didn't set your value, nor can you change it. You cannot raise it or lower it. So if you have in your mind that you're trash, you're wrong. You're divine. You're whole. Because you share a piece of the heart of God and Goddess herself. And all that will become extremely clear over the next period of time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Go Fuck Yourself. Parasite, fucking interdimensional entity that's been feeding off us for millions of years. It's the end of your days. It's the beginning of heaven on earth down here for those of us with even just a piece, just a sliver of heart left. God bless you all. More to come. I love you all so deeply.